Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another live webinar session with SEET Academy. We are so excited today. We have Rebecca Liebenberg, who is very involved with the community, an avid homeschool mom with a strong Facebook following. Then you all know Claire Euster, the academic director, John Falkbane, the director of SEET Academy, and Yorandi from SACAI. Please, everybody, if you have any questions for today pertaining to any homeschooling registrations, requirements, or anything like that, please post your comments in our comments box on our Facebook page, and we will try and answer them as we move through today's session. I'd like to start today's session with maybe Claire Euster, if she can just give us a little bit of background on her what she does with the Academy and how involved she is with SEET Academy, please. Claire, over to you.
Morning. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that intro. My name is Ms. Euster, and I am the Deputy Academic Director for SEET Academy, grade R all the way up until 9. I oversee the tutors who work all those grades. I'm also in the background of management, where I help parents with queries or issues or problems that they have. I also am responsible for overseeing the customer service reps that we have who assist our parents as or the day-to-day issues or problems that they have, or just general questions, because we often have questions relating to the Department of Education and help with homeschooling and registering with the Department of Education. I also oversee a lot of background things, which the list is too long to mention, because there's always a need for something to be done and to help, because we're a family. That's what we're all about. So wherever there's a need, we step in and we step up and we help. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Claire. I'd like to ask Yorandi. Yorandi, could you perhaps tell us what SACAI's involvement is with homeschooling and how exactly you can assist our parents that is possibly looking at registering, or those obviously that will be going to the FET phase for the grade 10, 11, and 12, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yorandi Schools, and I am representing SACAI today. For those of you who don't know what SACAI stands for, it's a mouthful. It's the South African Comprehensive Assessment Institute, and we are a private assessment body, one of 3 in the country. In a minute or so, I'll quickly share a slide with you just so that you can understand how SACAI fits into the South African education system. But for now, just to mention that SACAI specifically caters for the FET phase. So as a private assessment body, we are provisionally accredited with Umalusi to assess the National Senior Certificate qualification, or the NSC or matric qualification. So when I speak to you today, I am specifically only speaking about grade 10, 11, and 12. That is where we function. And then when you refer to homeschooling, in the FET phase, we don't call it homeschooling. We call, for grade 10, 11, and 12, we refer to distance education, because it's important to remember that compulsory schooling is from grade R up to grade 9. As soon as you continue with grade 10, you're doing so voluntarily. And then it's not homeschooling anymore. Then we refer to distance education. Let me share the slide with you. And if someone will just confirm that you can, I'm on one monitor this morning. So.
Okay, can't see anything yet. Not sure if you're sharing.
No, it only gives me the option to share the screen that I see you on. So I might not be able to share the slide. But that's not a problem. I'll paint a picture with my words. Right. So in South Africa, as we all know, it's the Minister of Education who is in charge of all education in the country. It is her role to oversee and manage everything and make a lot of difficult decisions. Under the Minister of Education, we have umalusi, who is the regulating authority, or then the quality assurer for, in our case specifically, the National Senior Certificate. Umalusi oversees the National Senior Certificate for 3 different assessment bodies. Firstly, there is the Department of Education, which we are all familiar with. In some or other way, you've been in a departmental school yourself, or you've had children there, so we are all familiar with the system. So there's the Department of Education and the various provincial education departments, and they also assess the matric qualification. Then another body that I'm sure you're familiar with, the Independent Examination Board, or the IEB. They also assess the National Senior Certificate, and their niche market is specifically your larger private school. And then the third assessment body is SACAI, and we specifically cater for your smaller private schools, and then the distance education market, which is where most of you come in. What is important to understand is that at the end of the day, all 3 of these examination bodies are regulated by umalusi. And when you write the grade 12 exam, then you get a umalusi matric certificate. It doesn't say that you wrote at this private school on this date via the IEB or via SACAI or via the department at a public school. It says your name, your ID number, and your results. So NSC qualification, whether you complete it through SACAI, the IEB, or the Department of Education, at the end of the day is the same qualification that opens the same doors for you. Okay, I think I'll stop there for now.
Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. Rebecca Liebenberg, could I ask you maybe just to give a bit of comment on what you do, how you define your homeschooling, any positive or negatives that you have with regards to encouraging our parents, and how to go about in the process of homeschooling?
Thank you, Melissa. Yurandi just gave such a brilliant description and outline of everything. I must say, it's the first time I've heard that structure explained so succinctly. I am so impressed. I'm going to go and take notes after this. Thank you so much for that. You basically said in a short space of time what I've been trying to say for many years, but I just didn't have the words. Thank you. My name is Rebecca Liebenberg, and I run let's call it a support group of sorts on social media, actually on various platforms, but Facebook is by far the largest one. I'll just give you a bit of background as to why I am where I am, because it won't really make sense if I just say, this is what I do. I was born into a rather large family with many cousins, and being the one of the eldest children, I had to do with babies from a very young age. I was bottle feeding and burping children from about the age of 9. And I think it instilled in me a very deep love of children. So I assume this was the beginning of my interest in early childhood development. So before I even had my own children, I was already reading in that direction. And it's something that became part of my identity as a person, to know about children and how their brains work and what to do with them and why they're there, and growing a family. So by the time I had my own children, I felt I was very prepared for everything. And I never really questioned the system of education, because I'd had a wonderful school experience. I'd had tremendous support. I loved school. I was one of those kids that, at the last day of matric, we were hanging on each other, crying our eyes out. And it was the horror of our life that we would be parted. So for me, school was an exceptionally positive experience. So when my children went into school and they didn't have that positive experience, it was quite a shock to me. And from the moment that they started in grade 1, I noticed that they were being taught many mistakes. So I actually started educating my children right from the beginning, really. Even before they were in grade 1, I was interested in education. I used to sell educational software in the late 90s. But when they went into school and it didn't seem to work for me, we tried public school, private school, and I taught them at home every afternoon for 4 hours, and it never really came right. So eventually we took my children out and we started homeschooling. And I felt a little bit lonely in terms of not knowing anybody who was doing this. And this is where I started the Facebook group. And the purpose mainly for me was to find information. I struggled to find the information that I wanted. There is information and the basics were available, but excuse me, I'm a stickler for detail, and there was a lot that I wanted to know. I felt isolated in my choice, and I needed to have a sort of a local touch-based system, because everything online was American and British, and it didn't really work according to the South African dynamic, which is why that was my specific focus. And what started as a space for me to find this information and help and confirmation that I was doing the right thing, because I think that's the one thing most homeschooling parents go through, is their phases of feeling incompetent and lacking in confidence to actually implement what they're doing. Even if they know deep inside this is right, they do need someone to tell them you've got this, and you need the constant confirmation. It's our own form of a ongoing assessment of ourselves, I presume. And very quickly, the group actually formed into something that grew beyond my control. Trauma and special needs, giftedness and poverty were some of the main topics that started becoming pertinent, more so than just the academics. And I realized that the academic part of homeschooling is actually secondary to homeschooling, and homeschooling for all of us is really a lifestyle choice rather than an educational choice, although obviously, they go hand in hand. And I really loved what Yorandi had to say about the distance education in the grade 10, 11, and 12 phase, because with the compulsory education being from grade 1 to 9, those are actually the formative years of our children. And during that time is when we homeschool, and that is where our lifestyle choice actually makes the greatest imprint on them and their psyches and who they're going to become eventually as human beings. So it was from that point of view that my group really grew in strength, because as a community, I like to think of what we've been together for the last 13 years as like a learning curve, unlearning, learning, relearning, about ourselves and our children, as well as academics. And one of the things that has always been sorely lacking in reality for us is the academic support, in terms of not telling us what to do, but helping parents learn how to know what the academics systems are, how to implement them in our homeschooling if we wanted to, or how to modify what we're doing at home in order to equip our children to a reasonable degree, and also allow them to grow to the point where they can actually do the FET phase, because that is actually the aim of all of this, is to grow children who can get a matric. Because of the dropout rate in our country, which seems to be around about grade 8, it actually became very important for homeschoolers to almost prove their position by making sure that all children finished their matric and went on to university. There is quite a lot of pressure on homeschoolers to perform like this, although I'm not an advocate of you have to go to university. I feel more and more that it's not necessary, but everybody will have their own opinions on that. But yes, we are relearning, and I don't think it's a process that's going to ever end. And after the whole COVID situation, we have seen that online presence has become vitally important, and children are learning to restructure their social interaction through this mechanism. So online schooling is definitely going to become a lot more popular. When I started homeschooling, we didn't even have a reliable ADSL line, so we did everything book learning, and it's only been with my last child that we've really used anything online, and she's actually quite liking it. So, we'll give links and stuff at the end, and then you can add all of that so that people know where to find our support systems.
Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. Also, just Yorandi, if you can also just share what you wanted to share with us on your screen. If you can share that with us, we would be happy to actually use that and post it onto our Facebook page as well, so parents can have a look at it as well, and obviously we can have it to share with them as well. We've got a question from Linnell Smith. My daughter is in grade 8 with Seat SA. Fantastic. I had to wait for an unabridged birth certificate, which has taken a year to get from the Home Affairs. Due to this, I have not registered her with the Department of Education. Is there a specific time that I need to register her for homeschooling, or am I still able to register her? Thank you. Linnell, I think I'm going to let John Faulkfane do that. I mean, I normally do that, but I think John Faulkfane, you can just offer Linnell some assistance with that, please.
Hi, Linnell. I think I did respond to the message on Facebook, but I think you have to actually apply for registration with whatever documents you currently have. You're welcome to get in touch with either Melissa or Sasha, and they can help you through that process. It is very important that parents that decide to homeschool their learners or their children do need to register. At least send the application. You're not going to get the response, as we know, but you have to send the application. So that's what I would respond with regards to that.
Thank you, John. Could you also just maybe, John, just give us some feedback, tell us about Seat Academy, a direction that we're going to go focus for next year going forward, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa. So Seat Academy, and before I start with that process, I just want to acknowledge Rebecca. I've learned quite a bit from Rebecca in terms of the difference between homeschooling and online schooling. And I'm trying to get our marketers to start using the term online school. And I think that those definitions are very important. And I'd like to thank Jorandi from SACAI. They've been extremely helpful and very patient with us in terms of from the time we started last year, even up to this year. And yeah, we look forward to engaging with him further. The need for Seat Academy arose because of parents that wanted to do not just homeschooling, but online schooling. So our market and my passion for education comes from my experience as a teacher. I was teaching for the last 20 odd years on and off. And my last two schools I was at, I realized that our education system is not really delivering. And you know, our vision and our mission at Seat Academy is to prepare our learners for the future they are going into. Our school system currently is positioned the way it was positioned in 1970, 1980, 1990. It's class periods of 45 minutes. You have to go to class. Somebody must teach you. And to be honest with you, I've tried to change that from the inside within the school system. I was still teaching up till July last year. And I tried to change it from within the school system, but I've realized that there's too much inflexibility. The school system is like it's like a, I wouldn't even say a ship. It's like a tanker that's moving in one direction, and to change it even slightly is very difficult. And I thought COVID would help with that, but it didn't. You know, most schools and many teachers just they struggle with the technology adoption, but it's also a case of maybe they don't want to because they don't have to. So our mission really is to prepare our learners for the future they are going into firstly, but we have to use the methods that's available today. And that's what came out for me when we did our Meet the Tutor last week, is that I mean, I've experienced it as a teacher. The level of discipline in schools at the moment across the board is shocking. Learners are not disciplined. They don't listen to you. And in fact, I felt most of the time abused as an adult because 45 against 1, or in the school that I taught, it was 48 learners in a class that was meant for 25 kids. So that's completely just you know, it's ridiculous to have 48 kids in a class. You know, I see that our very first academic director, Professor Ricardo Peters, is online as well. Thank you for joining us, Prof. And I think that at the end of the day, guys, we have an opportunity to really change education through online schooling. And I think, Rebecca, your group and what you've done is just absolutely amazing. But as we know, and I'll maybe ask the question to Jurandi, because I had a question on Facebook, is can people go directly to SACAI and register with SACAI? My understanding is SACAI themselves don't do the assessments because they can't be both the referee as well as the participant. I sometimes feel the education department, that's the root of the problem. The education department are both the referee and they're playing the game. So I just want to ask that question to Jurandi, but in response to your question, Seat Academy's vision is through a blended approach. So we do pre-recorded video lessons as well as live classes, as well as the assessments. We aim to prepare our learners for the world they're entering, which at this stage is the world of the fourth industrial revolution. It's not the future, it's the present. It's where we currently are. And the methods we need to use is modern methods. So why go to class for 45 minutes where a 30-minute period is fine for discussions and you can learn all the other stuff via pre-recorded video lessons, and you can socialize as much as in a normal school environment. So yeah, I just wanted to ask that question to Jorandi because I did get that question, and my understanding is that they can't go directly to SACAI, but they have to go via service provider. So Jorandi, if I may ask Comrade Chair Melissa, if Jorandi can answer that question.
Yes, please go ahead, Jorandi.
Thank you, John. So you are correct in understanding that parents cannot register their children with SACAI directly. If you are interested in your child doing distance education, then you need to go to what we call distance education providers, or sometimes just a service provider, which in this case is Seat Academy. It is the responsibility of Seat Academy to manage the learning and all of the administration of that learner's education. It is Seat's responsibility to set quality assessments, to make sure that it is administered in a fair way, that it is marked, that the learners get feedback so that they can actually learn from their mistakes, etc. And then where SACAI comes in as the assessment body or examination board, you can refer to us either way, it is our role to then do quality assurance with SEAT. So we call it SBA, school. It used to be school-based assessment. We now just refer to site-based assessment because you do the assessment on the site wherever you are. But on 3 occasions during each year, we have the site-based assessment moderation, where Seat Academy and all of the independent schools and other distance education providers who are registered with SACAI, they need to submit those assessments to us. We do our checks to make sure that everything is indeed in line. Where there's room for improvement, we then make an effort to take people by the hand and say, okay, this isn't exactly where it should be yet, or well done, you're on the right track. And in that way, we, from SACAI's side, ensure that your child then gets a good quality education. And then remember, at the end of the day, SACAI also reports back to Umalusi. They are our quality assurer. So they actually come and check whether we did those checks on you. But yeah, just in short, to answer your question, no, parents don't register directly with us. They go to a service provider. They will assist you at SEAT with all of your admin, all of your other questions. If there's ever a major concern, which I am having my fingers crossed, and I trust we will never have those with SEAT, then you are welcome to contact SACAI directly. But in all other instances, SEAT will always be your first point of call. Parents do not correspond with SACAI directly.
Thank you very much. If I may just respond to that, Melissa. Thank you very much for that, Jorandi. It's as I suspected. So yeah, I think I just wanted to add one more thing, which I know that, for example, our fee structure is based on the most affordable possible option. I mean, Rebecca will tell you, I'm sure that you've seen other service providers' fees. I mean, for this month, it's $550 a month up to grade 9. And for next year, it's $650 a month. And that includes everything. And it's largely to do with the fact that we want to bring on board people that, for example, we have lots of folks that applied for grade 8, but the classes physically South Africa doesn't have enough space. And that's where we're going to be challenging government at some stage and saying that if you don't have enough space, why not use online schools and pay? I mean, we can provide the same education that government is paying for within an online space. And yet we've got the dropout rate of, as Rebecca said correctly, between grade 8 and grade 12, half of the kids drop out. So out of every 10 kids that start in grade 1 or grade R, half of them drop out by the time they get to grade 12. And Jorandi, that's where we see a big need for us to assist these young people to complete their grade 12 and not wait 10 years. I mean, and I think that's where we really value the partnership with SACAI. The fees, Candace, I see there's a question around school fees. It's over 12 months. So we've tried to break it up over 12 months. Thank you, Melissa, for allowing me to babble on.
Not a problem. You're welcome, John. Thank you so much. Rebecca, just going back to the Department of Education registration, you wanted to make a comment there. Do you want to just do that comment quickly?
Yes, the lady was asking about when to register. The government asks that you register your child in the September before the year you're going to start homeschooling. So normally people, well, not normally, but traditionally, because homeschooling was very much a lifestyle choice and parents would make that decision before they even send their children to school, they would plan for grade 1. And I think this is why the department wanted it this way, that in your planning phase, when your child is 6 years old, you're now going to do grade 1 in when the year that they're 7, they want you to do your application and registration in September of the year prior to homeschooling. But I do want to just say there that many people choose to homeschool on the spur of the moment for various reasons. Homeschooling is no longer just a choice for a traditional reason of just wanting to have your family home and having that lifestyle. For a long time now, that has been changing. And of course, with COVID, it just literally flipped it on its head, where at least half of the homeschoolers, or maybe even more, are homeschooling now purely out of circumstance and not really out of choice. And when you decide in June that you want to homeschool, you don't really need to wait until September and continue with school and only then in the following year start. My suggestion would be pull your kids out of school. If you feel uncomfortable doing the schooling yourself, join SEET Academy if that's your choice, and send in your applications and everything at the same time. Don't wait, because every week and month that you wait, that you are wasting money, time. And in my experience from speaking to, I don't know how many hundreds of parents I've spoken to, but by the time you've made the choice to homeschool your child or remove them from the system, whichever way you're looking at it, there has been a problem of some sort, because you won't leave a system you're happy with. So you are going to prolong the drama and the trauma by waiting for September. We have been joining homeschooling for at least 20 years that I know of at any time of the year. Just start, do your registration and just start. Join your provider, because that does make it very easy. If you transition straight from school to an online system, the kids are already used to being guided in their education, and if that's what you'd like for them, go for it, unless there's been very serious trauma for the child, in which case I would actually suggest a deschooling period. But yes, I just wanted to mention about the September that they ask for, but that one shouldn't actually wait, because your child's best interest is paramount, and if your child is not happy at school, take them out.
Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. And yes, I totally agree. I mean, I do the sales for SEET Academy, and one of the most important things that we do offer is assistance with regards to the application with the Department of Education. And I always advise parents that, once we've done the registration with SEET Academy, I tell them take 2 days, at least take the 2 days break, because it can be very stressful when doing your research and not knowing anything and having to find out everything that you need to know, especially if it's an immediate registration that they need to do. It can be so stressful. So I always tell them, take a 2-day break after you've registered. Then we continue, and then I'll start and help you with the Department of Education registration process. So we'll provide them with all the links for the application. We provide them with a list of documents that is required, that they need to obviously make sure it's certified and that they attach it. We even check the application to make sure that everything is in that email before they send it off to the department, so that they don't have that problem of starting registering now, and then 3 or 4 months later down the line they realize, oh my word, wait, we forgot to do this. So we always have somebody also following up with them, like once a month. I would always remind the guys, just please remember, make sure that they have sent if you don't have it. We also find that obviously if we get a copy of that email, it also helps us to track that process as well, to make sure that they've actually done that application. John Forkvein, I see that you look like somebody that needs to say something in the corner.
I do too. So go for it, John.
I propose I first speak, Melissa, and then Rebecca. I see her hand was up, and then Claire. Just a proposal. I just wanted to ask Churandi something with regards to parents that homeschool their learners up to grade 9, right? At the end of grade 9, if they get an assessor to assess all those subjects, for example, we sometimes have people that have homeschooled up to grade 9 or grade 8, for example. But let's say they homeschool up to grade 9, and we do an assessment for that. We've got qualified teachers that do that. Is that report that we give, is that sufficient for SACAI for us to take that learner to grade 10?
Yes. So, and Rebecca and, well, maybe the rest of the SEAT Academy staff might actually know more about the home education policy than I do, because it specifically applies to up to grade 9, and that's not where we function. But yes, as you know, in the home education policy, it is a requirement it states as a requirement that parents must have their children assessed by a competent assessor once a year. And then that same principle will apply in grade 9. Not. Okay.
It's actually once per phase. It's at the end of every phase.
Okay, well, so grade 9 is the end of a phase then. Thank you for correcting me. So yes, end of that phase, have a competent assessor do the assessment. But at SACAI, we do also encourage our registered institutions to do their own benchmark testing with a grade 9 learner who wants to come into grade 10. If it's a grade 9 learner who completed the year through SEAT, then obviously you know what you did with them and you know that they met the relevant requirements. So in that case, it won't be necessary. But if it's someone who comes to you from a different provider, or it is someone who really just did homeschooling without any assistance from any kind of provider, then it is very important that you do that benchmark testing to make sure that that learner truly is ready to enter into grade 10. And yes, then we would like to obviously see those reports. And then it's just the common sense and logical thinking that before you can progress into grade 10, you need grade 11, you need a grade 10 report. Before you can go to grade 12, you need a grade 11 report. So it is then SEAT's responsibility to always make sure that when someone enters into your system, doesn't matter which grade, that they do indeed meet the requirements to be enrolled in that specific grade.
Thank you, Randy. Can we go over to Claire, and then after Claire, Rebecca?
Sure, no problem, if that's okay with Rebecca. So yes, 100% with what Randy is saying as well, with what you can call a benchmark test, or even a placement testing, which is something actually I'm spearheading with Melissa at the moment, so that when a student comes from the outside and let's say they finish grade 9, never got to 10, and they maybe want to be in 11, then we can benchmark assess them and see, listen, you actually skipped a lot of 9, and this is where you need to be. So that's something that Melissa and I are busy working on, especially kids from a different education perspective than our CAPS curriculum. We need to know where they are aligned according to the South African system. Sorry, Yurandi, I know you also have a comment there, so I'm just going to be as quick as I can. I wanted to say as well, thank you, Rebecca, for what you're doing, because there was no such thing as this when I was homeschooled, and I was homeschooled, okay, many, many, many moons ago. But when I first homeschooled, there was not many homeschoolers. And unfortunately, a lot of parents had so many questions. There was no support system for where to from here. Where can I get advice for this? Am I doing the right thing? You know, as a parent, you're doing the right thing, but you don't have that support from other parents, like, where do I get textbooks? Where do I find this information? And the fact that there's a support system now for homeschoolers in what Rebecca is doing is fabulous. So if you are, it doesn't matter whether you were Seat Academy or a different service provider, if you need support, please join Rebecca's page, because you will more than likely be able to find out some information you are struggling with as a parent. I must also just mention, when choosing homeschooling, Melissa will attest to this, make sure that whoever you're using as a service provider is registered. That's a big thing to know and make sure that you are safe with. If you're going to use a service provider, make sure that the South African Committee Education Department recognizes them and they are actually registered to be doing what they're doing. Last thing you want to do is your child goes all the way up until 10 and they need to be falling under SACAI or something like that, and you find out your child was never registered in the first place because this company does not exist. That is a big scare for a lot of parents. So this is information a parent needs to know. And I think they can find out that information from Rebecca and them as well, her site, as well as Melissa. Melissa knows a lot about that stuff as well. And then what else did I want to say? I know I'm doing a big block interaction here, but also for Yurandi, including the Amalusi thing, because not a lot of parents actually know the whole education thing and who falls under what section. You know, we know it because we know what we're dealing with on a daily basis, but a lot of parents don't even know what Umalusi means. And so thank you guys for mentioning that. And as well for John and his vision of what we're trying to do with all the kids that are dropping out. That is the point of what we're trying to do, provide an alternative option for these kids so that they don't drop out, so they don't disappear in society, that they become something. We want these kids to excel. They need to go all the way to 12. And we need to help in any way that we can get them there. Sorry, over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Claire. Yes, the importance of the grade 1 to 9 is obviously, if you're using a service provider, I just need to mention this. If you're using a service provider for grade 1 to 9, the parents have to register the kids with the Department of the Education, not the service provider. Okay, so we can give you assistance, we can help you, but we physically cannot do the application on your behalf. It's so important that parents is aware that they have to do that process. Rebecca, you had something to say?
I've got 3 points. I'll try and make them quick, but I'll lead from what you've just mentioned about the parents have to do the registration. And the reason for that is when a parent chooses to homeschool, that is the alternative option allowed by law. And when you take that option, you become the responsible party. You become both responsible and accountable. I say this as much as possible because there's a difference between responsibility and accountability. The parent is always accountable, no matter what the situation is, if you're in a private school, public school, homeschooling, online schooling, whatever the case may be, when things don't go well, the parent is accountable by law, not just in terms of the moral application. The responsibility shifts, however, depending on what the parent chooses to do. If you as a parent choose to do online schooling, you're handing over that responsibility to the online school. And if you hand over such responsibility, obviously you'd want it to be with a company or a group that is registered, that have got all the checks and balances, that aren't going to be a fly-by-night and disappear just when your kid's about to do exams or something like that. So I think from that perspective, the registration and accreditation is important, because you are paying somebody. You essentially delegating your responsibility to another person to help you educate your child. And you want them to be a responsible group, because you're not going to be checking their every single move. The point of doing this is so that you don't have to do all the legwork. It's helping you, it's making it easier, giving you peace of mind, all those things. So yeah, that was just what I wanted to say about that. And then if you don't register with the Department of Education, and you have chosen not to for whatever reason, but then change your mind and you want to, they will not penalize you for registering late. If you've been homeschooling your children and now they're 13 and you've decided, gosh, I didn't quite do enough of what we needed to be in a high school setting, I'm going to go online schooling now and see where they can fill in the gaps, or that kind of thing. You can join an online school and register at the same time as a homeschooler, and you won't be penalized for not having done so before. The Department of Education is not out to tar and feather anybody. They actually just want things to come right. There is a very, very big disconnect between the government and the citizens, and it has been like that for a long time. And it shows quite poignantly in the homeschooling setting, because homeschooling used to be illegal, but it's been legal for a very long time now. We have covered a lot of bases, and there is a good rapport developing between the homeschooling community and the Department of Education for a very long time now. So they're not going to go after you. You can still register, and they're not going to penalize you for what has gone for the years before. So all you need to do, if you want to, become legally compliant, is check which phase your child is in and do the phase assessment for that child's phase. So if your child is in grade 4, just do a grade 3 phase assessment, because you're not at grade 6 yet. And that will be fine. If you are in grade 7 or 8, do a grade 6 phase assessment, because that's what you should have done, just to make sure that you're now in the next phase. And the department sees each phase as a kind of a separate, let's call it a little diploma of sorts. So each is a 3-year course. And the 3-year courses end at the end of grade 9, which is why they want a phase assessment for that. And the next phase, being the FET phase, I like to think of it as a 3-year diploma course, which is why it's very important that the years are consecutive, and that they don't really accept congruent education between the grades, because at that level of education, you're no longer learning the tools and some basic content. You've actually taken the information that you've learned up to grade 9 and the tools that you've learned to communicate and read and write and count, to apply it to a specialization, because you're now going to choose the kinds of subjects and things which you want to apply in your working life one day, so that you can maybe get a diploma, go to college or university. That is what the grade 10 and 11 and 12 is for. It's a 3-year course, and that is why it needs accreditation, because we have to have quality control. Otherwise we'll have people working in the world in our country, and they won't know what to do in their jobs. Okay, so those was, I think, my 3 main points. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. And yes, it's so true. I just see there is a question from Candace. Where can we do the assessments? John, I know you wanted to make a comment. I think, could you answer that question as well?
Yeah, sure, no problem, Melissa. So, Candace, if you are going to join SEET Academy, we provide assessments for that. But Rebecca will tell you as well that on the homeschooling group, there are other folks that do assessments as well. I just wanted to correct one thing Claire said earlier. We cannot do a benchmark assessment for grade 10 for somebody to go to grade 11. if I'm not mistaken, Yurandi. If somebody is homeschooling their child for grade 10, we had a situation at the beginning of the year where this teacher was homeschooling their own child and doing their own assessments. Unfortunately, we can't help that parent. That child has to do grade 10 over. SACAI, we've got a very good relationship with SACAI, and we've learned that we can't benchmark that. We can only benchmark up to grade 9. The question that I wanted to just ask Yurandi is that one of the things that we'd like to do is to help matriculants, and we see it all the time, is that we'd like to see if somebody's done a normal NSC, but they're not happy with that, Yurandi. So they finished this year, they finished due to COVID and all these difficulties, and they want to do that grade 12 over. Are we allowed to assist them to do the grade 12 over with us?
Yes, you are welcome to enroll learners who repeat the entire grade 12 year, or then someone who just wishes to rewrite the final exam. In other words, they then choose to use their SBA marks from the previous year for that year that they will be rewriting. The SBA assessment marks are valid if you completed grade 12 from 2008. Those SBA marks remain valid for infinity. If you completed grade 12 before 2008, you will essentially have to redo grade 10, 11, and 12 because, like we said, it's a 3-year qualification, and you will have to redo those subjects because there were changes. But anywhere from 2008, the SBA marks remain current if you want to use them as is. However, my personal advice is always to rather redo everything. When you are forced to do an assignment or study for a term test or for the June exam, it forces you to actually engage with the content. And then by the time it's October, November for the finals, you have actually opened the textbook a couple of times. So you are prepared for what is coming. So yes, that is definitely an option. And it can open doors for so many people who want to just improve perhaps one mark to gain entrance into university, or someone who feels that they can improve overall and redo perhaps all of their subjects.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I just wanted to follow up on that. Just before I do that, I'd like to just answer Vugala. If they come from a private school that has been registered with the Department of Education correctly, then we don't have to do benchmark tests because that's fine. My question to you, Jurandi, is let's say we offer a adult matric course as well, but what I want to ask 2 questions. The one question is, can we then, if that person's not happy with the SBA mark, can they do everything over with the SBA? And the second question is, if we do have adults that just want to write the assessment at the end of the year, in fact, I wouldn't go that route. That's not really what we want to do, but it would be interesting to know if it was possible. Because you have lots of people that have a SBA mark, but they want to obviously improve on it.
Rebecca, do you want to say something first?
Yes, I'd like to further embellish on that question. Would it be possible for children who have been in other systems who want to maybe change the system in that 3-year period, grade 10, 11, and 12, can they switch curriculum providers seamlessly? And obviously it would work better for the CAPS curriculum, but if they were doing an international examination course like GED or American Homeschool Diploma or Cambridge or something like that, would they be able to make the switch to SEET Academy or something like that? Would that be possible? And would they be able to slot into the matric grade? How would you place them?
Okay, you're leaving all of the difficult questions for last. Okay, so firstly, to respond to your question, John, if you have adult individuals who are interested in redoing grade 12, if they wrote before, or well, let's say from 2008 and later, then their SBA is still valid and they can use it as is, or they can choose to redo everything, and then it will only be the grade 12 year that they redo everything in the SBA, and then they write the exam. However, if you are approached by an adult who wrote grade 12 before 2008, and they want to redo their matric qualification, then it is the entire qualification that needs to be redone for the entire 3 years. And my personal opinion, once again, is that depending on what your motivation is, I don't think it's worth it. There might be other options for you to consider. But if it is someone, or if it's something that that person really wants to achieve, then by all means, go for it. But rather explore other options if possible. To respond to Rebecca's question, that is actually, I think, a complete conversation in itself, perhaps a whole new webinar. But remember, the NSC is a South African qualification. SACAI is provisionally accredited to assess the NSC, which is a South African qualification. If someone did a different curriculum, remember, even something like Cambridge is not a South African curriculum. So before someone who did Cambridge or someone who moved to South Africa from abroad, or anything that is not the South African curriculum, before they can be enrolled with SEAT, there must be a SACAI evaluation done on that foreign qualification. So SACAI, the South African Qualification Authority, the parents will have to approach them and submit a number of documents to them. They will do an evaluation of that qualification and issue a certificate or a report that says, okay, this qualification meets these requirements, this learner qualifies to be entered into grade 9, grade 8, grade 10. So yes, it is possible to come from a different system into the South African system, but it is a more lengthy process, and I've just scratched the surface. There's obviously a lot more detail with this process.
Just a quick question, Chirandi. If somebody from another country wanted to do the South African CAPS curriculum, is that possible?
Technically, with online schooling, yes. But what you need to remember, once again, it's a South African qualification. At this point in time, the final exams needs to be written on South African soil. So if that person is in a different country, they will have to travel to South Africa for at least the 6-week period of the final exam in grade 12. Last year, we had I think there might have been more than one unfortunate incident with borders being closed. And I think in one case, it was actually a South African citizen in a different country. So they qualified to register for the NSC quite easily, not even as an immigrant learner, but then they were unable to travel to the country. So SACAI advises against enrolling learners who do not reside in South Africa. Another factor to consider is that if you enroll a learner who's, okay, let me take one step back. Remember, it's a requirement in the NSC to offer two language subjects. One must be a home language and another must be first additional. You can be exempted from a first additional language if you meet the immigrant status requirements. But if you do not reside in South Africa, you're not an immigrant. So I cannot exempt you from first additional language. So now you might be sitting in Japan. You can cope with English home language, but now you need to do Afrikaans first additional language. And I can't exempt you from the subject because you're not an immigrant. So it just opens so many doors for just so many issues and challenges. So technically, yes, you enroll people from all over, but you will be inviting in many challenges and many potential issues. And I think we might end up over-promising and being, due to policy, not being able to deliver on those promises.
I completely hear you. Thank you for that guidance, Chirandi. I really appreciate it. So my question is, so if somebody's done a NSC, a normal NSC with the Department of Education, and they come over to us. So a matric, they finish this year, normal NSC with matric. Basically, when they come over, that SBA is still recognized by SACAI.
Yes. So remember, NSC is NSC is NSC. CAPS is CAPS is CAPS. Whether you do it with the IEB, with SACAI, or with the department. So if someone was in a government school this year and they did all of the SBAs there, and they decide to come and rewrite 1 or 2 or 5 subjects with SEAT, then it's still the CAPS curriculum, it's still the NSC qualification. So those SBA marks are then transferable. This is not a process that I'm involved with myself, but my colleague, who's the head of the NSC division, she then has a process of asking for or requesting the SBA marks from the department or from the IEB so that it can be captured in our system.
Wow, awesome. I see there's a question here from Amira, and I think maybe Jorandi, you can answer that question because you guys are our assessment mommies and daddies. So if a child completes schooling with SEAT Academy, basically what's going to happen is that next year they're going to be doing their matric with us and they're going to get the normal NSC. So the question is that qualification accepted internationally or recognized internationally?
Yes, remember what I explained at the beginning is that all 3 examination boards are regulated by Umalusi. So at the end of the day, any learner who writes their matric certificate, whether it is, the NSC examination, whether they write through SACAI, the IEB, or the Department of Education, they all get an Umalusi matric certificate. On that matric certificate, you won't see the SACAI logo, there's no IEB logo, there's no DBE logo. It's just the Umalusi logo. It will be your child's name, ID number, and their results. So the Umalusi matric certificate is an internationally recognized qualification. And like I said, they won't know whether you completed it at an IEB private school, at a government school, or SACAI. It is the same qualification. It's just presented by 3 different assessment bodies.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you so much to everybody. We really, really appreciate the fact that you could join us this week and the information that you provided. I am sure that this will benefit all the parents of SEAT Academy, new parents of any homeschool groups on Facebook. Please do share the video after it's loaded so that we can get this type of information out there so we can help our future students. Also, I'd just like to make a note that next week we are doing our webinar will be based on preparing for final exams. So I think it's quite important with our grade matric students starting their exams soon, needing to get how to prepare for these exams. So that will be an exciting topic that we will cover next week. So please join us for that. I'd like Claire to close us off for this week, if it's possible, please.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Melissa. Again, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Rebecca for joining us. Amazing the information and the journey that you've taken up until this point. And I'm glad that we can be a part of your homeschooling group and just helping people along in advice that they need. Because, you know, we're not selling SEAT Academy. We're creating these webinars to help inform parents. We just happen to be one of the service providers available, but it's an informative get together. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Yurandi, I think that has been an amazing amount of information you have given us. Sorry that we put you on the spot so much, but again, as well, it's that information the parents don't have that they don't know. And there is a big gap between the Department of Education and service providers and parents. Parents actually is the biggest gap. And that's what we're all doing, what Rebecca's doing, what SEAT Academy is doing, what SACAI is doing, is we're helping bridge that gap so that we can all be on the same page, or at least have some knowledge and enlightenment from the different sections. So thank you very much for joining us. And I didn't even know about the Umalusi thing and that it's recognized internationally. So that's wonderful to know and to promote for our students as well that are with us. Thank you, John, for taking the time today. You brought up some really amazing questions to ask Rebecca and Yurandi, and that again, that we can help our parents know these bits of information that they don't know. And thank you, Melissa, for heading up our whole panel and get together. I look forward to next week and seeing the discussions on how to help our learners prep for exams. That's going to be a good one. So I hope people join us again. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Saturday further. Bye, everyone.